Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. I was doing so well posting every Friday for a few weeks, and then I fell off the wagon. I'm sorry guys. Not that most of you are waiting for a video every Friday, but for me, I just felt like I needed to have some sort of schedule, at least what uploading a video was concerned. Not necessarily the painting or the creating part, but just uploading so that I can feel accomplished for the end of the week. It didn't happen this week, and the reason why was not only was it kind of a busy week for me, but I also felt really uninspired. I feel like I have been doing the same thing over and over and not really creating anything new. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to know that you're starting to see similarities in your work, which kind of means that you've found a groove in creating. That's my guess. But when I look back at the videos that I am posting, I feel like it's just the same all the time. And I get bored looking at that. I don't know if you get bored. So if you have any insights on that, I would appreciate it if you dropped me a comment down below, because that's the only way I can really communicate with you guys. And I don't want to have to deliver the same thing every week. Not that they all look the same, but you know what I mean. The doodles are the same or similar and so on. That the style is similar. I feel like a change is coming. And I feel like I've said this many times. That's why I'm laughing. I've said this many times on this channel. But I can feel that I am a little bit in a rut, and so I might have to switch it up a little bit. I'm not making any promises or any threats at this point, but I have done some acrylic paints in the past, and I might want to go back to that. I don't know. So this is what I did when I wasn't feeling it this week. I just wanted to play with my new Gansai Tombow Art Nouveau set colors, and I didn't feel like covering the whole page and making a huge mess this time, and so I just created these rectangles and squares and just plopped in some colors. This technique is really great for beginners because you don't have to feel like you need to know how to use watercolors. You can just go and play with mixing different colors. You can leave them all one color. The strokes don't have to be perfect because we're just building a background, something of interest and something that you can then use to doodle on. I was going back into my travel booklet and just to see what I had done in the past, and I really liked all the doodles that I did on these two pages, and so I kind of wanted to recreate some of these. And that is also a great idea when you have a sketchbook. And you can just go back and see what have I done in the past, what did I really enjoy, and then implement that in a bigger piece later on. It doesn't mean that it has to look exactly the same, of course. You can just go ahead and take inspiration from what you've created before. So I start out with very thin lines with my black liner pen, and I plop in some neurographic lines. I don't use neurographic lines the way they're intended. I just enjoy the process of putting down lines and then rounding out those corners. To me, this is already super relaxing. I know neurographic lining has some really wonderful benefits, but I am not the person to look for in explaining exactly what it is. I will link what I believe is the creator of this technique down below, and you can go check out his videos, and he's got some really wonderful videos on this technique. I use it to put another thing down on my background, something that will help me then put my doodles in. I could have just left it as regular lines, that would have worked too, and I have done that in the past, but today, because I wasn't feeling any of it, I go back to what I know best, and that's watercolor backgrounds and neurographic lines like that. If you're feeling stuck, I would suggest maybe just either start with watercolors like I did with no particular plan, or just putting down some lines first, and then it can be pencil, it can be with ink, it can be with a marker, it can be anything that you have on hand. It doesn't need to be any kind of brand or anything, because when you're feeling stuck, the least you want to feel like is that you don't have the appropriate tools to do art, which you guys, you don't need anything expensive. If you feel like you just want to do something, you can choose whatever you have on hand. Nobody should feel stuck because they don't have the right tools. Do you know what I mean? So it's very important to know that you don't need expensive tools to create, if that's what you choose to spend your pastime with. Of course, you know, some people want to do something completely different other than art, and that's totally fine. I'm just saying that don't go out and buy expensive things. Now that I have outlined my lines and rounded my corners, and I have also thickened up some of the lines, I can now go in and start my doodling process. And that again should feel fun. It should not feel like you have to do a certain style or anything like that. Because I have all these white spaces in between the watercolors, I chose to doodle inside those white spaces. And for that, I went back to my notebook to see which doodles did I really like, which ones would work in this space. The set of fine liner pens that I'm using here has a pen that is super fine. It's a 003. I usually work with a 005, and I am really liking this really fine tip. The pens are not waterproof, and I don't believe they have archival inks. So if you decide that you would like to try them out, then just be aware of that. I have started using these pens because I feel like I need to save up my good micron pens a little bit more. I tend to mess up the thin tips of those because I use them a lot, like I said. And I have, when I first started out doodling and painting, I bought these, and not realizing that they didn't have archival ink in it. And so then I realized they are also not waterproof, so I stopped using them for a little while. But I feel like I want to bring them back and just use them up until they're done, and then I probably won't replace them later on. So that is just something to think about. I have listed all of my tools down below in the description box. You just need to expand it, and then all of it is right there, including these gold pens. I really enjoy those pens, although the thinner tip of them, it tends to not work so well, which it came in a pack of 3, so I guess it's okay. I wanted to outline the thicker black lines that I did because it felt like, after looking at it, it felt very very strong and harsh. So I wanted to soften them up a little bit, and I think adding those gold lines next to the thicker lines helped quite a bit with that. I don't know if I am more used to the sepia color that I've been using lately, which has a nice soft brown, but yeah, all of a sudden the black felt a little bit harsh. I don't know. But it's just something to keep me busy. This is not intended to be a masterpiece, and let's be honest, none of my pieces are masterpieces, but what I'm saying is I just wanted to be creative. I just wanted to do something, and I wanted to tell you all that it is okay to feel uninspired, but I feel like we still should sit down and create something. It's a muscle that you need to keep doing it in order to get better, and I can certainly use all the practice there is. And so I decided, instead of pulling one of my older videos that I have, just in case I don't feel like doing anything, but I want to post at least one video for you all, to just sit down and create something, even if you're not super proud of it in the end. Sometimes I go in and I add more lines if I feel like it could use a little something more, and that is totally okay. Just because you put down some lines in the beginning doesn't mean it has to stay like that. I really enjoyed this little doodle here. And how I decide which doodles I want to put in is totally random. Also, I usually don't really know what doodles will come out until they come out. But this one felt kind of retro to me. I really enjoy it. I might have to remember that one and bring it back in the future. These lines are in preparation for my dots. If you've watched any of my videos, my previous videos, you will see that I like to use a dotting tool and some acrylic inks to put dots on. And these lines as well, I will put dots on them later on. Most of my footage is sped up a little bit. Otherwise, we would be sitting here for 2+ hours. And I don't want to do that to you. So just know that I am taking my time with these doodles and these lines. I am not rushing through it. Sometimes I sit there and I stare at it, trying to decide what it is that I want to put in, or how to proceed, or does it need more lines, or does it need anything else, stuff like that. I take my time, and that usually does not come across well enough in these videos, unfortunately. I don't know where this doodle came from either. I might have used it in the past, and it's just funny to me how these lines come out of me sometimes. But I really liked that I was able to, there were enough white spaces for me to doodle in, and I didn't really need to touch the watercolor background. Sometimes I feel really sad when I have to, I don't have to, but you know what I mean, when I cover up those beautiful watercolor backgrounds with doodles everywhere. So I like creating pieces that have a lot of white space that I can use to doodle in instead. And this is an example of what I mean when to add more lines when you feel like it needs a little something. I didn't want to cover it up with any doodles, but I just wanted that space broken up just a little bit. And here is my trusty dotting tool and my acrylic paint. And when those dots are dry and you put your fingers over it, they actually have a little bit of texture, and I really like that. Not that you should touch your finished pieces, but in case you want to, it feels really good. So using those dots really make me happy, and that's why I bring them out all the time. They're a little bit cumbersome too, because you have to dip your dotting tool in pretty much all the time, but there's something about it that I just enjoy, and I like when the dots are uneven. They make me happy. So I dot wherever I feel like it could use a little bit more, or if there's a blank space and I don't really want to fill it up with a doodle, that's when the dots come in. Or I put dots on those straight lines. And then I felt like it could use a little bit more gold, and so I found some spaces on top of the watercolor that I felt could use a little bit more of that gold, and that's why I filled in some of those spaces with my gold pen. A little bit more lines on the outside, a little bit more dots to finish it off. And then when I took off the tape, I erased the pencil lines, they were still kind of visible and it bothered me, and so I put a gold frame over the whole piece, and I kind of liked how that turned out because there was a lot of white space. It felt like it needed something to finish it off. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end, and I'll see you next week.